obviously allowing someone to to wank during. Sorry, am I allowed to say what is it?
I think they just got off on just phoning up and talking to someone gay, but you'd be saying to them, oh, well, the Lesbian and Gay Centre do lovely quiche, and they'd be like banging away on the other end of the phone.
Varying degrees within the call, you can know when it's happening, and sometimes you can catch them kind of early on, but sometimes not in time.
And it's really awful actually, because we're not there to be wanked at. We're volunteers and we're giving up our time to do this. To listen to people and support people, and we're not there to be wanked at. There are people who, staff sex lines. That's their job to be wanked at. They get paid to be wanked at. That's fine for them.
Wankers.
Hello, London Lesbian and Gay Switchboard.
Hi, I'm new in London. I've done an apartment swap from New York to here with a lesbian couple. They're in my flat in New York right now. Anyway, I just moved in. It's a really nice place. I'm just wondering, is there anything I should not touch? I mean, I've read Germaine Greer. I know that there's stuff that I should and shouldn't do. I mean, I have American lesbian friends, and I don't want the lesbians to feel invisible. I want to respect their boundaries and needs and their hopes and dreams and fears. Also, they're Wicca lesbians. So, should I not move the tables? Or is the whole room going to burst into a ball of flames or something?
These days you don't get much change out of a fiver for a beer at Pride, but back in the 70s they were literally chucking it at you.
Switchboard is about the same age as Lesbian and Gay Pride, and I remember talking to people on Switchboard who were on that very first Lesbian and Gay Pride, and feeling quite proud of them for what they did. I understand they walked down Old's Court, and there were not very many of them. They walked past the Coleherne and people threw tins of beer and spat at them.
As we walked past the Coleherne gay pub, we were canned by the Leather Queens standing there, who thought that we were rocking the boat and would make things worse for them.
Now, the question for us now is, would we walk down anywhere in London where people are going to throw tins of beer and spit at us in defence of something that we believed?
I remember the political atmosphere being very different. We were still under siege. We were still a bunch of very, very marginalised radicals doing a very, very marginal job.
Most of us were pretty fanatical, to be honest, and I think it must have been quite a scary place if you weren't a real activist gay. In those days, there was very much a distinction between activist gays and scene gays.
There was a very, very right-wing beginning of the 80s atmosphere, and we were the opposition. But the gay scene has always thrived on adversity, and it's only ever it's only ever really expanded as a cultural and political movement when something dreadful has happened. HIV was one of those dreadful things. Another dreadful thing, and it may seem relatively more frivolous, was Section 28, and that was big, but it absolutely galvanised people. One year there were, probably a few thousand people at gay, marching for Gay Pride, and the next year there was, like 100,000. And it was all to do with the campaign against Section 28. Section 28 consisted of one lie and one insult. And the lie was that you could promote homosexuality, and the insult was that homosexual relationships were pretend ones. Historically, it had a hugely positive effect. I think Margaret Thatcher probably invented the UK gay scene. As it is today.
Despite Maggie's best efforts, the gay community, and Switchboard in particular, had already been confronting a deadlier threat.
In the early 80s, we started to get calls about people's fears about this new strange thing that was happening in America. It was happening in New York and in San Francisco. Gay men were dying, nobody was sure why.
It was haemophiliacs, Haitians. What was the third? Homosexuals. The 3 H's were the people you weren't supposed to sleep with, and then it became Americans because it was affecting Americans more.
I remember very clearly making jokes about HIV and AIDS and about it coming over from America, and you'd talk to guys and be like, oh, I met this cute bloke, he's American. We'd all be like, oh my God, you don't want to go near him because he's got that gay plague, and that's what we used to call it. And then, of course, we quickly realised that that wasn't the case.
We knew people were dying of this thing. We suspected it was an infection. We didn't know if, and couldn't believe that, if people got it, everyone would die.
I mean, I can remember in the early days saying to people not to panic and not to worry, because we didn't know at what was going on, and that they shouldn't alter their lifestyle